A mushroom between. Welcome to a mushroom between.
I love it. I love it. I'm happy to have us in between some mushrooms, or have some mushrooms in between us.
Exactly, exactly. We got Noah here hanging out at MycoReach. We met you, I think day one you came up, and you showed a genuine excitement. And then hearing a bit about your background and your interest level and what you do, definitely wanted us to just have a conversation to see what your thoughts are. But give us your name, background, and kind of what you're focused on.
Yeah,
And we'll go from there.
absolutely. I'm Noah Cawthon. I do culture curation for myco-Symbiotics. My background in mycology is, like a lot of folks, pretty unprofessional. But very quickly I realized that like this is a real science and there's a lot to learn and a lot that a citizen can do, which is really inspiring because I didn't really want to go hella into debt to go to school to start doing these things I find really interesting. And that's when, I started looking and I found people like Will and all these other wealths of knowledge. And that's when I kind of realized that citizen science is as real of a thing as it is, and real contributions are waiting to be made. So from that point on, I felt really inspired, and I spent years just like in a lab I had in my mom's house, just like learning how to do like proper culturing and like taking wild cultures, foraging everything I could, and trying to cultivate it, figuring out how to make master mixes and all that. And like after a few years, you just get the gist.
Yeah, I mean, I love and that's where I also want to talk to you too, because the citizen science aspect, I think is not brought to light too often, but when it is, it's very beautiful, and we definitely want to highlight that through MycoReach, because again, like that's we built this for the community, for citizen science to achieve the goals that they're looking to achieve, and what I find interesting, like I'm not classically trained in chemistry. I'm not classically trained in mycology or anything like that.
Me either, yeah.
I was fortunate to expose myself to labs and that kind of stuff to give me some of the know-how and understanding and like primer. But it took a level of like dedication and obsession to be good at it.
Yeah.
And and that's what I really am. I'm hopeful for something like MycoReach and meeting people like you is to create that spark that'll drive somebody to obsession. I hope there's a better way of saying that someday, but
I think obsession is key in something like this. I mean, like, we all marvel at people like Alan, like Alan Rockefeller. He could rattle off the name of any mushroom you can approach him with in any corner of the world for the most part. And that only comes through obsession. Like, we marvel at all the best in every sport. Michael Jordan, Kobe. I don't really watch football or many sports, so I ain't got a list. But yeah, and all those people are truly obsessed and they love it. And that obsession comes from a place of passion, not obligation. And that's where that greatness comes. And I think people being exposed to science in a citizen science context, it can remove a lot of the pressure that, say, a job can put on somebody and kind of like taint an image or something like that. So I think it's really important to like this MycoReach and all that, to put them in schools, like you were saying about going to a school in a prior interview I had eavesdropped. But yeah, like I think that's really important, getting people interested in their own time, in their own context. I think that's how you create that obsession, and that's how you create outstanding citizen scientists.
No, for sure.
And access, and having something mobile and of such high quality like this, I think creates access that literally didn't exist prior to something like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just think that's very cool.
Yeah, and that's definitely a lot of feedback that I've taken away from this is like try to get more kids involved. I'm like, hell yeah. So hopefully we'll be able to do something in the kids program next year at the 45th festival.
Yeah, I was teaching my close friend some things about sterile practice and stuff, and his son asked me like, why is it so important to be clean? Like, we wash your hands, you're clean, right? And I had him go wash his hands, and then I had him put his fingers on an agar plate. And like a couple days later, he was blown away at all the crazy shit that started growing from his clean hands.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden he's like asking his dad for a microscope for Christmas. And it's like, even just those silly little playful contexts can really spark that interest,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so I just think it's really cool, and I think it would be amazing to have you guys at MycoFest, because we have a lot of kids at that event, and I think it would be great to put them onto some stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of cool, I think, kid level interesting thing like that one, the Petri dish with the fingers, like that's beautiful. I think that's a really simple, executed sort of way to spark that interest level. Even like food coloring petri dishes and growing turkey tail on it to break it down and
Yep.
just being this idea of micromediation.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a lot of cool concepts there. My big thing, honestly, and what I like to talk about is sort of why I continue to do what I do. And I'd like to know why you continue what you do, and sort of the angle that I kind of also, second part of it, is there any sort of innovation or things coming up that excite you in that space that keep propelling you into it? Because for me, that's what drives me is R&D, literally. Like, if I'm probably the worst employee of all time, because if I figure something out and I get bored, I'll bounce. So that's what allowed me to kind of, I get to bounce from thing to thing and do these cool new things and show someone else how to do it. That's what excites me. And then even what's crazy to me is, like, on the cultivation side, not everything's figured out. And there's so much, and everyone's just like, okay, this is how it's been done. This is how we're going to do it. And now I'm starting to notice, because Eric Lohman, buddy of ours, Myco-Wizards, main cap and stem, those guys are fucking sick at the videos, the content they create, and really inspiring, I think, mushroom farmers to really push the limits to figure stuff like bioreactors.
Yeah.
Or, automated systems, stuff like that. But anyway, that's my excitement here. What about you?
I love that. That excitement's contagious. Thank you for sharing that. I have definitely a lot of things that keep me fascinated. Constantly feels like a bit generic because of like the excitement around them, period. But the genus of psilocybe in general, I find very exciting. And Pennsylvania is abundant with them. So exploring the different ecotypes and localities, that's like an outdoor side of it that really keeps me fascinated. And yeah, like I've been kind of witnessing a speciation in Ovoideo cystidiata, where I'm like seeing over the past few years I'm climbing higher in elevation, cutting away from the typical maples and going specifically to oaks, and now they're huge as fuck.
Interesting.
Yeah, I just sent them out to have some DNA sequencing done on them, but like being able to witness things like that in real time, I just find fascinating. And then
that's an amazing example, because to my mind, it immediately goes into sort of a conservation side or ecology side, wondering immediately, I'm like, are they sensitive bioindicators for climate change, and they're just progressing and adapting to that?
I could absolutely see that, because the places I used to find them in the years prior are washed away now because the floods have gotten much worse in the winter.
Yeah.
So I mean, that's absolutely possible. I mean, mushrooms are definitely a canary in the coal mine to a lot of things. We just like lack the capability to really look at it and identify what it's signaling to us, but then in the lab side of things that keep me just super fascinated, cordyceps breeding. It's so fun, and growing out those cultures, just that whole process. It's such a long and intensive process.
Yeah, it's like a full-time gig just to do that.
It super is, and it costs so many plates and so many bags, and sometimes the genetics just aren't it.
Yeah.
But that process itself, breeding of really anything, is really interesting to me. Hybridization in general, I find super fascinating, especially like, just to bounce over to psilocybe quick, like Julian Matucci. I don't know if you're familiar.
Didacariotization.
Shout out Julian Matucci.
Oh yeah. Imperial Sciences. He's here in Colorado, apparently.
Oh really?
Yeah.
That's awesome. But yeah, some very inspiring stuff that he's doing there, and things like that, people like that, really are what keep me like on it,
Yeah.
But yeah, cordy breeding is definitely the lab thing that I'm just like, I'm down to make 500 plates and blow 500 plates if I have to.
Yeah, just to see. No, that's beautiful, man. Like, one thing I want to just drop on you, what I heard from Eric.
Please do.
From Myco-Wizards.
Drop it.
We're talking about, because they do culture preservation using cryo.
Mm-hmm.
And we're just talking about, reinvigoration and senescence in general, and we got into cordyceps, and he was saying, apparently, according to them, they found some research showing that the senescence pathway, the programmed cell death, can be bred out.
Wow.
Apparently. But nobody has really, I think, even started approaching it, I don't think. So I think it's wide open, but apparently you should be able to do that with something like cordyceps. But who knows if there's hitchhiker's issues where if you select and remove genes, what else was on it?
Yeah, that's very possible. I have not heard of that, but I think that's very fascinating. And in cordyceps in particular, that would be super beneficial.
Yeah.
Because...
And it would get boring, though, because or maybe not, but
Yeah.
I think it just like the breeding aspect like creates this novel marketplace.
Absolutely, and an ever-changing one at that.
Yeah.
Yeah, and there's some folks out in California. I can't think of their names off the top of my head, but they were able to start producing like 10 milligrams of cordycepin per gram.
Jeez.
Wicked high numbers just from genetic selection. They haven't changed their substrate recipe. They've just been working on genetics.
Interesting.
And so if that kind of numbers are available just within the genetic side of things, imagine if we started pairing it with like a cricket substrate or some kind of actual like bug dense, protein dense substrate. I think that could be insane. And then the compounds that you could extract, extraction rates, all of that. There's just so much potential. And you know, events like this where all these minds come and meet, the potential like is ever growing every single year.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's just really inspiring because I hear things like what you just said about being able to breed out genetic degradation, basically.
Apparently, like I can't confirm that
Yeah,
yet.
yeah.
I'll try to get a paper from Eric, and I'd love to share it with people.
Yeah, I would love to read it.
That's what I'm saying, man. Like, not everything's figured out. Like you're talking about, like breeding programs is a big part, and then the interaction between the genetic and its environment is another way to enhance metabolic processes, and that's like a whole nother thing. Like hormonal exposure to like germanic acid, which is like the hormone response to being attacked by something without actually attacking the culture. You can just promote that environment that might enhance metabolics.
Yeah.
Super interesting. But that's, just to tie it to the van here, like the big dream picture is to have that sort of open source database from culture all the way to genetics, all the way to metabolomic information, so that you can select what you want to play with. And then you can connect that with Julian's sort of work with monokaryotic pairings, running full genome on that kind of stuff to understand what are the metabolomics without having to grow it.
Facts.
Like being able to predict like something without having to use 500 plates necessarily. You just use a couple, run full genome on it, get those gene markers, and say this one has the gene cluster for a way high elevated production of cordycepin or something like that.
Like it has this genetic capacity.
Yeah, basically. And that, I mean, that's like, who knows if that will ever happen, but that's, the step one for us is the culture bank and just creating an open source access to something like that so people can take these things and run with them and do food, medicine, technology, remediation, any sort of applied mycology.
I think that's phenomenal, especially because like with things like Hericium, that genus as a whole, every species, there's a pretty decent variability in hericetones or
whatever.
Triterpenoids, whatever else is involved. There's always like pretty big variability in different species, let alone phenotypes. You were saying earlier you have like something like a dozen different phenotypes. Is that correct? Yeah. So like, I would love to see the data analysis on that and see the variability within a single species.
Exactly. I think that's our like step one with the metabolomics if we can.
And then from there, you being able to offer a genetic that's higher in hericetone or something of that nature, I think that has infinite potential. And so thank you. I just wanted to put this out on cam quick. Like, thank you for doing this. Thank you for taking all the time to figure this out, because when you walk into this space, you can see it is meticulous. It is super well thought out. It flows through the space in like this nice sequence of autoclave to table to flow hood. It has just all of your things. It's like feng shui lab style.
Nice. Thank you. I appreciate it. Mad shout out to Kyle. He's the guy who designed and built this entire thing.
Okay, yeah. Shout out
90
Kyle.
90 days.
Wow.
Yeah. And
record time.
Yeah.
Outstanding numbers.
Yeah, great work on his part. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm very excited, and thank you for your kind words, and we're hoping. V2 next year, we're, we got some feedback from some people. We're not sure, but we're hoping to be closer to the ID tent, hoping to get way more cultures, and hopefully we can make a bigger impact. But I don't know if you have a minute, if you have anything on the horizon that you're super stoked about, if you want to plug anything,
For sure want to plug Organic Nobility, William P. D. Brown's truffle documentary coming out. Definitely keep your eyes out for that. Doing previews kind of all over the country, pop-ups, all of that. But yeah, we're going to be releasing our culture menu back onto the MycoSymbiotics website soon. I would like to shout that out. That's been an exciting project that I've been working on for a couple months now. And we have some people growing out all the cultures now to assure quality. So I'm really excited to get them on the site and get them in the hands of everybody and collaborate, hopefully, and get some of these genetics. I've seen this beautiful Flamelina up there. when I was hiking the other day, and you said that you have it. So I very much look forward to getting that and perhaps getting that on the site, and just offering very unique things,
For
because
sure.
that's really the goal of what we do.
For sure.
But-
And I definitely want to get on the genetics on the cordyceps, because we, MyCOLove does grow out, and we don't breed. That's not our thing. We're cool with that. We like to outsource that thing, and we'd love to play with some of your genetics.
We'll definitely be in touch. I'll give you an email off camera, and we can just connect about
Perfect.
that. Yeah.
Well, thanks.
Thank you so much, man.
Yeah.
I hope I stayed coherent all the way through. I can't lie.
100%, dude.
I didn't sleep too well last night, so I was a little nervous.
Did.